there's some articles that have appeared on the internet, and there's been some other videos I've seen people create about Pope Francis. And this question has to do with he was visiting with some teens at school, and he responded to a question that someone asked about how to deal with people of other faiths and people who are atheists, saying, and his response was that Christians should never attempt to convert a person from one belief to another, and anyone who does that is not truly Christian. Now, how do you react to that comment, and is that a biblical belief?
Sure. Let me give you a little background of the question that was asked to Pope Francis, his response, and then a biblical response. It was on December 20. He was giving some lectures to a group of high school students. And one of the high school students asked that question about conversion. How do you relate to those who are not of the Christian faith or unbelievers? It was at that point that Pope Francis said that you live your life and live a godly life, but certainly don't try to convert them, and certainly don't share the gospel with them, because that would not be the Christian thing to do. He uses the argument there of the Christians, and as they were trying to convert Muslims, and says that Christians, when they were trying to convert Muslims, threatened them with death. I'm not sure that that statement is even historically factual. If it is, it simply is what we would call certainly not in harmony with God's will for anybody to force anybody else. And we could agree with the Pope in the standpoint of the fact that our lives should be a testimony. There's no question there. But, now here's the but. Certainly our lives should be a testimony, but it's not either or. The Bible is very, very clear. If you look at it, let me give you some Bible passages that are too clear to be misunderstood. The Bible does urge us to go out and preach the gospel. It urges us to share the gospel, not simply in the way we live, but in what we proclaim. Matthew chapter 28 says, Jesus says, go therefore and make disciples of all nations. He doesn't simply say go and live a kind, gracious life, although we are to do that. Don't misunderstand me. But it says, go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all things whatever I've commanded you, and lo, I'm with you always, even to the end of the age. So in every generation, God's people are to go out. They're to proclaim the gospel. They're to see men and women come to Christ. In Mark chapter 16 and verse 16, it says, he who believes, it says verse 15, he said, go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. Not simply live it, but preach it. He who believes and is baptized will be saved, but he who does not believe will be condemned. So here Christ himself urges us to go preach the gospel. Acts chapter 1. These passages are just too powerful to overlook. Acts chapter 1, verse 8, it says this, but what you shall receive power when the Holy Spirit has come upon you, and you shall be witnesses to me in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, the ends of the earth. So the first thing that we want to say is this. Yes, we are to live a godly life. Certainly we are to reflect the image of Jesus to others. Our life does speak. The life that Christ lived spoke. But that does not mean in any way, shape, or form that we should not openly proclaim the gospel and lead people to Jesus Christ. So from that perspective, we would have to respectfully disagree with the Pope's concept, the Pope's statement to that student, that we should not proclaim the gospel in conversion. Now, let me tell you where this is leading. It's leading to what we would call anti-conversion laws. We see some of those conversion laws that in various countries. We see some in Muslim countries. There are some Hindu areas where there are anti-conversion laws. Now, what is an anti-conversion law? It's a law that puts restrictions on the liberty to proclaim the gospel as Christ said. And it puts, at times, fines and punishment upon those who do that. Once you go the direction of anti-conversion laws, you restrict religious liberty, and if the state passes anti-conversion laws, it restricts the freedom to proclaim the gospel and to carry out the gospel commission as Jesus has said. Once we restrict religious liberty, once that religious liberty is taken from us, that will lead to other freedoms and other liberties being taken away. So the biggest danger I see personally in what the Pope said is not only does it misunderstand the gospel, but it leads us down a road where church and state could mutually agree to pass anti-conversion laws that would be a step in the direction, Matt, of restricting religious liberty, which I think is really dangerous.